Hi, in this video I'll be doing a review on the Feelworld 7-inch monitor. This is the LUT7S. I also have the Feelworld 568, which is a 5.5-inch monitor. I'll do the unboxing of this, I'll show you what you get, I will show you the menus, I will also give you my critical review. I'll also compare it to this one so you get an idea between these two monitors. Right, in the package you're getting the user manual, the unit, the HDMI cable, and the arm that holds the monitor onto your camera. Right, so I'm going to go through all the parts of this monitor and the accessories that come with it. Right, just having a look at the size, the width, the total width is 19 centimeters. The height is 12.5 centimeters, but keeping in mind there's a roller button there and then 3 shortcut buttons there adding about 2 millimeters. Just having a look at the width, it is just under 3 centimeters, but keeping in mind when you do have your battery, it makes it considerably fatter. For example, that is the NP750 battery, and as you can see, it does add considerable thickness. To get the battery on, you have to press this button and release it like that. So you would slide your battery in there. You do not have to press the button to install it, but in order to release it, you have to press the button. You'll see that you have space for 2 batteries, and I highly recommend that when you're using this monitor, especially if you have the brightness set high, make sure you've got high capacity batteries, and you will see that later in the test where I show how much current this uses when I connect it to the bench supply. While we're talking about the power supply, at the bottom here you have a DC 12 volt jack. So if you've got one of these AC adapters, you can connect it and power up your monitor. It also has a DC output of 8.4 volts. Just comparing these two monitors side by side, this is the 7-inch and this is the 568, the 5.5-inch. You can see that there is a considerable difference, but just keeping in mind that there's a lot of wasted space here on the sides, because if I switch it on, I'll show you. As you can see, the border is quite wide when it comes to the 7-inch monitor. Just having a look at the back, the 5.5, you insert the battery sideways, while this one, it inserts vertically. Just having a look at the footprint, you can see the 5.5 is definitely your compact version, while this one is significantly bigger. Also looking at the thickness of the device, they are quite similar. The reason why they are quite similar in width is mainly because of this attachment point for the sun visor, because this one isn't actually that thick, but it's got this, call it a 6 millimeter lip where you attach the sun visor, which makes it seem fatter, but definitely when you're holding it in your hand, this is definitely compact and lighter. This particular monitor comes with a sunshade, sun visor, and what you need to do is you just put it on. It's extremely sticky, and the visor goes like that, and it works very well. I don't have anything bad to say about the visor, and when I say it's pretty tight, there you can see it's pretty tight. So as you can see, the 7.7-inch is under 450 grams. And if I add the arm, you can see it is about 525 grams. While if you look at the 5.5-inch, you can see they're significantly lighter at under 200 grams. And if I add its arms, still about 260 grams, significantly lighter. Now on the bottom you have an HDMI in and an HDMI out. These are full-size HDMIs. I have already said you've got your DC in, your DC out. Now you've got an attachment point here, and what you'll notice is that the threads are quite deep inside, which is actually a nuisance in my opinion, because if you want to attach it to a plate, you'll find that, see, there's my screw. You'll see that I only can do a few turns. Watch. That's one full turn. That was one full turn and a 3/4. So that's not even 2 turns, which is a problem. And I'll tell you why that's a problem, because this monitor has almost fallen off the plate more than once. And the reason being is if this monitor happens to get bumped or swiveled, you'll find that that's already released 3/4 of a turn. So that means it's only got 1 turn left of holding those threads. And then boom, the monitor comes out just like that. And I feel like that is a bit of a safety hazard in terms of keeping the monitor for a long period of time without having this drop off your camera stand or whatever else you're using to hold this monitor up. So just be aware, if you are going to be using the screw, try get a longer screw, because you're losing a bit of the threads because the plastic is quite thick here while the threads only start quite far in. Now, one of the nice things is you've got one on the side, an attachment point there, and over there. So that gives you 3 different attachment points in terms of the orientation of the monitor. Do you want it like that? Do you want it like that? Do you want it like that? Now, while we're talking about the attachment point, I'm now going to show you the arm that comes with it, which is a slight improvement on the older one, but in my opinion is still not great, and I'll tell you why I feel that way. Right, so I'm just going to show you the arm that comes with, and I'm going to open this up so you can see what I'm talking about. So what you're getting is a platform there with 2 raised nipples which align over there. It's also got 2 spaces, and that would slot in there. So make sure that when you do fasten this thing on, the nipples go into the holes there, and then it stays stable. Right, so what I'm having a problem with is, you see there's this little plastic washer here, which is fine, and that goes in there. And then you see that there's this plastic washer over here, and then there's a cog. As you can see, it's supposed to get tightened by your fingers. Your fingers are supposed to tighten it, and you see there's like this washer that's quite rough, or it's got these like flanges that go around. And what is supposed to happen is you're tightening this cog, and you're attempting to tighten the plastic onto that plastic, which is all squishing this aluminium piece in the middle. And the reason why is as follows. You see, what you'd do is you would attach it there with this lever, and you would then fasten it. Now it is fastened, and as you can see, you've got this free play, which is great. So that means that the monitor can move without having to release this lever. Now the problem that I have with this design is as follows. The first thing is this lever, once again, it's only got a few turns. So if you bump this lever, watch, I'm full tight. I mean, that is really tight. Don't worry about the movement here, because that is tightened with this cog. Now that is at full tightness. Now watch. Now I'm going to release this 1 full rotation. So let's go 1 rotation. So that is 360 degrees. And I just want you to notice how wobbly that is. It's already pretty wobbly. So if I go just if I just go 180 degrees loose, look at that. So you're basically getting 1 turn and a half. So to fully loosen this, it's 1 full turn, so that's 360 degrees. You can already see how wobbly this is, and within barely 180 degrees, look at that, it's already coming out. I mean, there actually was 90 degrees. So that is 1 turn and 90. That is 2 few turns in order for the monitor to come out. Now you're probably thinking I'm making a meal of this. When your monitor falls on the floor because you just went like this, and next thing it pops out of here, then you might not say I'm making a meal of this. All right, so that's the first problem. Again, highlighting the fact that the threads are too deep in there. The thread should be right on the surface of this plastic, but obviously that would be more expensive. Right, now the next problem is as follows. Now I want to tighten just this so that it doesn't move so freely. Okay, fine. So what you got to do is you got to grab this cog and turn it. Now, why I think this is a cheap design, as you can see, the washer inside there is actually overlapping. It's higher than the cog that you have to turn. You almost have to scratch your fingers on this washer in order to tighten it. It doesn't make sense. Why didn't they just make this washer thinner? Right, so if you have a look there, just look at the tolerances. You see this washer? Can you see how much free play it's got moving up and down? That for me is the fail. This should have had narrower tolerances so that this wouldn't happen. When I want to tighten the cog, can you see that this thing can actually shift inside there? Look, up and down. So look there, up, and then it's higher than the cog. And now when I put it down, can you see it's lower than the cog? So that might not seem like a big deal, but when you have to tighten it and you feel like, oh, there's 2 different layers here, then you just feel like it's got a sense of being cheap. Right, now the next thing is, if you look here, there is no attachment point. If you wanted to install this onto your plate here, you can't. There's no threads there for the plate. Whereas on the older arm, you can see that you could attach the arm onto your plate because the hole here was threaded for the screw over here. So in that way, the older one is actually better than the new one. But the older one is also not great for this reason. Right, so here's the older one with the 5.5-inch monitor, and I want to tight fasten it onto the side here. So watch me. This one is better because you can see the threads are available right there. They're not recessed. Anyway, so here I'm going to fasten this, and you can watch it. See there? This is what's happening here. Look at that. Look at that. So already this is a poor design. Can you see that this thing, as you release it, look at this, watch this part here. You see, now you're actually loosening it, and look at that. This is a real nuisance. I bought this as an additional monitor when I purchased the other one, and this thing, it bothers me too much. I'm going to have to get a different arm to hold this monitor. In fact, this is pretty much pointless. It does have a cold shoe mount here, which the newer version also does have. But when I use this monitor, I find that this is an absolute headache. Right, so while I've got this bracket in hand, I'll just carry on this critique and tell you where you put this onto your camera is also a headache. And the reason being is you might want to rotate your monitor like this, which is obviously a common movement which you would need. Well, guess what? You can't do it without loosening that screw. So if you loosen that screw, you are effectively just removing the arm off the base. So it's not like you can just swivel the monitor 3 times. No, this thing will just fall off then. So here you might think, oh, you can swivel. You're actually not just swiveling, because all you're doing is unscrewing that screw. And when you've unscrewed that screw, then it just comes out of the base. So it's not like it's got a washer there that is allowing you to swivel. No, you're actually just unscrewing it. And you might think, oh, that's not so bad. I'm going to tell you why that's bad. Because when you unscrew it even one turn, this happens. Right, so now it's stable and tight. Now say, for example, you want to turn this 90 degrees. You want the monitor to face to the side while you're doing your camera work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this 90 degrees. Look here. Now you think that's fine. It's not fine, because now it's got this wobble. And yes, that's only 90-degree turn. Now you think you're going to film with this. You ain't. If you're walking with your camera, then this happens. So this whole arm system for me is useless. What I do like with the 5.5 is it does have this attachment here which you can move there or there. As you can see, it's got 2 screws there, and all you need to do is unscrew these screws and then rescrew them in there, and that allows the monitor to attach like that or like that. It doesn't have on this side, because on this side you've got these ports, and it doesn't need to have on that side because you can also flip the screen using the software. You can flip horizontally or vertically. Right, in terms of the cables that arrive with the unit, this is the cable that arrives with the LUT7. It is a full HDMI, and then it goes to a mini HDMI, then to a micro using this adapter. In terms of the quality, this is not great. This would be your entry-level product. As you can see, this isn't strong stuff, and just looking at the cable that came with my 5.5, already I'm having this problem. As you can see, the male part here is already bent, and I'm not somebody who's rough with my gear, and the reason why it's bent is because the mold, the plastic that they use, or the rubber they use, is inferior. Because as you can see, that is not good. The male part here should be going deeper into the mold, but I feel like it's just maybe 2 millimeters here. It should be about all the way to there, then you wouldn't have this problem. I almost feel like I could just pull this out. So I'll have to get a new cable. And in terms of the quality of the cable and just looking at the materials they use, this is definitely your entry-level stuff. I wouldn't say this is your high-end stuff at all.
Just another issue, if you have the Fujifilm camera which has got the USB pretty close to the micro USB connector, then if you are using this adapter, then you're going to find that you can't power up your camera at the same time as using that mini to micro adapter, as there's not enough space there.
Right, on this side here, there's a slot for an SD card. You can see pins go upwards and you insert your SD card. What the purpose of this is for is to upload your lookup tables, which you can now use, considering this is called the LUT7, lookup table 7. Right, so you're going to switch on the unit and you'll double tap on it, and then all you'll do is you'll go there and you'll say lookup table import, and you switch it on. Right, so there you can see it is now importing the lookup tables which are sitting on this SD card, and I do have an entire video just on this topic, so I'm not going to go into much more detail here. All I'll tell you is that you can select the lookup table you want and you can switch it on or off. Obviously, I have several lookup tables now preloaded, so you can just select the one you want and you just switch it on or off. There's a little shortcut menu here. You say on or off. There is an LED here that changes color. It is red in standby mode, and then it goes to almost like an orangey color when it is on. The appeal of this light is also a little bit cheap in my opinion. Looking at the top, you'll see you've got a menu cog here that rotates, and you can depress it. So you press it inwards and it's got a function, and I'll show it to you shortly what it does. And then you've got what we call an LDR, a light dependent resistor. Yes, it is in plain sight, not even hidden away. So what that does is it allows you to have auto brightness on or off. Say for example, if you're outside, it will notice that because it will see the ambient lighting will be bright, and therefore it will increase the brightness of your screen. If you go indoors, because the LDR will pick that up, it will notice that the ambient light is now darker, and therefore the screen will get darker, obviously to save your battery life. You can manually override that, and you can set the brightness to manual mode, which means it'll disable that LDR. Then you've got 3 shortcut buttons on the top here, F1, F2, F3, and I will show you the entire menu system towards the end of this video. And just quickly, as you can see, if I scroll up or down here, you've got like your Android phone, that's the brightness, and here is the volume. Right, if you double tap here, it brings up the menu on the left hand side, and if you just scroll up like that, it brings up your quick shortcuts, which you have here at the bottom. If you double tap here, you can also scroll through your menus like this, and if you want to select any one of them, you depress the wheel or the cog inwards, and then what happens is you can then select what you want. What you might notice is that the way it scrolls through the options is not that clear. For example, say you wanted to choose your lookup table. So there it is, and now I want to go through to my lookup tables. Can you see that I'm scrolling through the different lookup tables which I got? But my question is, why is that one dark? Is it because that one is already selected? So let me select that one, and now I scroll down. Can you see that one is now dark? So sometimes it's a bit misleading, because if you have a look, that is like black and that is dark gray. I feel like they should have used colors to show the one that was selected. That should be in green, meaning selected. You see here, see there now, have I selected that one or not? So I find that this is sometimes a bit unclear if you're in a hurry. I know you might disagree, but once you use the monitor, you'll see what I mean. Then on the left-hand side, you've got the power button, again, that attachment point, and then you've got a 3.5mm audio jack to listen to the audio should you wish. There's your HDMI in, your HDMI out, and then you've got your battery connections here at the back. Right, now the monitor can be connected to a DC supply. So I have a bench DC supply, which is giving me my 12 volts, and there you can see the current. I've set this up like this so you can get an idea of the current usage, so they can also allow you to understand the batteries you will need in order to get this device to run throughout the day. So you can also see I've connected up the HDMI to my computer just as a dummy display, and I specifically put a screen that has a white background, and I've put the brightness down to 1. So there it's on 1, and you can see that when it's set to 1, you're still using over 1 amp. Look at that, 1.2 amps. Alright, so I've increased the brightness now, as you can see, and I'm doing this consistently because it lowers the brightness by itself because of the LDR. If I put my finger on the LDR at the back, blocking out, you can see that the screen is actually getting dimmer. So I'm just going to increase the brightness once again, and there you can see 1.4 amps. If you're going to be using this at say 30% brightness, it's still asking for over an amp. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the screen to something that's not a white screen, because a white screen is not something that you usually would video. Right, so there you've got a landscape background, and you can see that you're still going to be using more than an amp, so 1.14 amps. So my recommendation, if you are going to be using this just on batteries, make sure you get the highest amp hour batteries you can find. Right, so here we go. I've got the 5.5 inch monitor, and at 50% brightness you're using 0.7 amps, and if I increase the brightness to 100%, you can see it's not actually pulling much more current, still 0.67, 0.68 amps, so considerably less. Obviously the screen size is smaller. Right, I have a battery connected as well as the DC supply. Alright, I have my DC supply connected still, and you can see it's using 1.14 amps, and the question is if I reduce the voltage here, basically it would be equivalent to unplugging it, then will it immediately just go to the battery? Let's have a look, and will it flicker the screen? Nope, handled it very well. As you can see, the little battery icon has come on there, and now you can see that this is now running off the battery because the current on the bench supply has now gone down to 0. The question is if I increase this now again, will it toggle back to the supply, or will it still be using the battery, and will it in fact charge that battery? Right, so I've connected it to 12 volts and I plug it in, and there you can see it's taking 1.15 amps, but the battery icon is still on. So one wonders if it is now charging the battery, because it's showing battery, the battery's gone. So therefore it's now toggled to bench power. Right, and I've just connected my multimeter and I can measure on the battery terminal 7.38 volts. So I can confirm that it is probably not charging the battery, because the DC input is 12 volts. And as you can see, I'm measuring the battery terminal and the battery terminal is 7.4 volts, probably just taking the voltage level from this particular battery.
Right, so this is afternoon sunlight, very yellow tinge now. And what I've done is I've just checked that the screens are the same angle. If I put it exactly vertical, unfortunately there's a lot of reflection on the screens and all you're going to see are the trees behind me. So I've just leaned it a little bit forward and there you can see the two screens. But hang on, this is the default on my Fujifilm X-T3. This is the LUT7 at 100% brightness now. The picture-in-picture on the right is an example of the exposure that the DSLR camera recorded. So you can actually compare it to the LUT7 monitor. They're not synchronized in terms of time, just an example of the exposure. Even if I tilt my camera a little bit down, I barely can see this screen. I almost cannot see my Fujifilm screen, while the LUT7 is pretty clear. In fact, to the naked eye, it's very good. I can honestly say it's very good. And what I'd also like to bring your attention to is I specifically put a blanket there which is moving in the wind, and I want you to see the blanket moving there and there so you can see the delay, which is actually very minor. Even at 50% brightness, I can still use this monitor in sunlight. But I will bring to your attention that the battery life is not very good when you have it at full brightness, considering it's gone down 1 bar in not even 10 minutes while I did this test. That's pretty much what I'm seeing with the naked eye. I understand that that's totally overexposed. That's pretty bright, and that's what I'm seeing on the screen right now. And there you can see it just barely in my DSLR screen. Right, so there's my camera connected to the 5.5. The 5.5 is daisy chained to the 7-inch monitor, and I'm just going to set the brightness on this monitor at the moment is set to user, so it's at 50%. And then I will set it to full brightness in a moment, but I'm just letting you know that is at 50%, and the 7-inch monitor is at 1%. So if I take this to 50%, there we go, you can immediately see how much brighter it is. On my camera, it's almost becoming overexposed. So let's take it to 80%. Right, so I'm going to increase the brightness here on the 5.5 to 80%. Right, so that's 80% there. And the 7-inch, let's go to 80%. I know that it is probably looking overexposed on the camera, but I can make out the image pretty clearly. What I've done now is I've now underexposed the camera that is recording all of this in order to show how bright this is. As you can see how much brighter this is versus that monitor and then the on-screen LCD of my Fujifilm camera. Now let's take it to 100%. Right, so you're now seeing the 5.5 at 100% and now the 7-inch also at 100%. And you can see how much brighter it is. That is pretty significant, because now I've underexposed it considerably on my camera, and I mean you can still see how bright that is. That could give you an idea of how bright this monitor is for the fact that I've had to underexpose the camera that I'm using to record all of this. And if I put it to the regular exposure, you can see just how much brighter it is. I know it is coming out as though it's washed out, but it is definitely not washed out. Now when I look at it with my naked eye, I can see perfectly the brick wall and all the brick lines. So there's no problem in terms of what I see, but I know the camera is probably just showing it as washed out. Right, so that is now at -2 stops. And if I now take it to regular brightness, you can see, look at that. Right, now I have the DSLR playing back a video, and what I wanted to do is test the audio characteristic. Now here I have my AKG 271 studio headphones, and I've already listened to this file on my computer using an audio interface, obviously 24-bit 192 kilohertz with a flat response, so the audio I've used as a reference. Then I listened to it on the Fujifilm, it's quite close, and when I listened to it on this monitor, it's one thing I can say, it is really loud. So if I plug it in here and you adjust the volume, I mean, you can actually hear this.
it's definitely loud. But in terms of the sound quality, what I found is it's got more of a mid-range sound. The mids are amplified a bit more than should be, but that is a common thing, and I'm not saying that it's a terrible sound. It's definitely a good sound, but as I said, it just seems to have a little bit more mid-range. On this one as well, you can connect it over here, and it's also pretty loud, and then the volumes become there and there. You adjust the volume with the arrow left and arrow right button, and as you can see, the volume option comes up over there. Overall, the audio is good, and I haven't really got anything bad to say. They pretty much sound similar. Right, now I've got both of these monitors here, and I'm just going to tone down the backlight a bit here, just so we're comparing apples with apples. And what I want to bring to attention is I've got them both set to focus peaking, and obviously they are getting the same signal. And what you might notice is that the green focus peaking, I've set the color to green. You can set it to orange or red. And what do you notice? Look at the brick and look at the window frame. Can you see there's a lot more green on this monitor than there is on this monitor? Now you might say, well, this is a smaller screen, so it's more compacted. But I'm seeing green colored in on the bricks, whereas here inside the bricks there's no green. So it's almost like the focus peaking is inconsistent between these two monitors. So that was a little bit concerning. However, I've used both these monitors and I almost always use the focus peaking, and in terms of the videos that I've taken, both these monitors do a good job in terms of showing me if I'm in focus. But the only thing that was weird now is that they don't correlate with each other. So that seems strange. So what I could do is swap the HDMIs around. Maybe there's a cable issue. I can daisy chain it in a different order, but it doesn't actually make a difference. Now there you go. You can see a definite difference in the focus peaking of both these videos. Now let's look at the false colors and see if they agree with each other. Right, so there is the false colors type 1, and just have a look at that. Keeping in mind these monitors are from the same manufacturer, so my only question is why they don't correlate with each other, considering it is the same signal coming in. And if I try the other type 2, well, that's something different. So there you go, just having a look at that, and that just stands out to me as something I can't explain. If there are people who can comment on the video, it would be great if you could fill me in on why I'm not getting the same false colors on these two monitors. Right, now I have an actor doing a dance, and I'm going to put the false colors on just to see what it's like with this image. And there you see, once again, there is some difference between these two monitors. So it'll be interesting to see which one of these would be considered as the reference or the accurate one. Quite strange that they are not correlating 100% with each other.
Right, I'm going to briefly go through the menu options with you. If you double tap on the screen, you bring up the side menu. You can set the amount of time it takes for that menu to go away, and if you want the shortcuts at the bottom, you scroll up like that. The screen is divided into two sections. If I scroll up here, you can see I'm adjusting the volume. If I scroll up here, I'm adjusting the backlight. Right, just having a look at the shortcuts at the bottom, you've got 9 grid. There you see, on, off. You've got safety marker, and you can select the type of safety marker you want. And then you've got center marker on, off. You've got marking matte. There you see. You've got false colors type 1, type 2, which I'll still show you. And you've got lookup table on, off. If you want to switch the touchscreen off completely, you just press the power button once and it switches off the touchscreen. Right, looking at the menu items on the side, as you can see, it's touchscreen. You've got your focus assist. Now you can use the scroller to scroll through. I'm turning the wheel on the top right of the unit, or you could just use your finger. So if I want to put focus assist, as you can see, I can switch it on. In terms of switching it on, you've got some settings which you can choose. You can say focus level. You can then choose the color of the focus peaking. You can switch zebra on, off, monochrome. You've got your false color, you can switch off, and then you return. Right, now we go to the next setting. We've got the grid options there, which I've already shown in the quick menu. Now we come to this section. You can switch it to underscan or overscan. You've got the video aspect ratio. Those are the options. Video width. You can adjust the width of the video. Maybe the video feed is too narrow or too wide. You can adjust it, so you can do the video width and video height. You've got anamorphic mode, flip vertical, flip horizontal, flip vertical, zoom times. Then you've got freeze on or off.
Then you've got pixel to pixel option, and then you return. Now we come to the analytics here. You can have all waves, on, off. You can have parade, on, off. You can have vector, on, off. You can have RGB histogram, there you go, on, off. And just histogram, on, off, mixed. And then your audio meter, I actually like to have that on, and then you return. Right, now we come to the color options. LUT switch on, off, the color temperature of the screen. You can select the backlight mode to auto or manual. That's the LDR that's on the top. If it's on auto, it will automatically adjust the screen brightness based on the light that is impinged on the LDR sensor. If you can set it to manual to disable that LDR. You can set the backlight here. Then you've got the brightness, you've got the contrast, the saturation, the hue, sharpness, and then you've got your settings. You can also use the wheel to change your backlight, volume, zoom times. Then you've got your shortcut keys, F1, F2, F3. I'll just show you what you can set them to. Then you've got your language. You got your on-screen display, alpha, low, middle, high. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but it does look like it is changing the brightness and the contrast of the on-screen display. Then you got your on-screen display time, which you can also set. And then you've got the volume, which you also set here. And then you can mute on or off. Right, so to sum up, what do I think about these two monitors now, having used them for more than a week? Well, the first thing is, just about me, is I'm somebody who prefers practicality over anything. If something is not practical, I think it's a fail. This arm that you use to fasten the monitor, this is a fail. So basically, if you are going to buy this monitor, budget for an arm as well. So therefore, when you're looking at the price of this thing, yes, these do come in at a very good price. You must be in the market for an arm as well, or something to fasten this monitor to your camera or camera stand, because this is a waste of time. In terms of this monitor, the display is good. It does what it's supposed to do. I was a bit concerned that the two monitors didn't correlate 100% with each other in terms of the false colors and things like that. You can set the monitor pretty well. Like if you want to calibrate it to the DSLR LCD screen on your camera, you can do that. You've got a lot of control over these monitors. I particularly like the size of this monitor, and I think for most of my applications this would work fine. But then you've got these buttons on the top here. So rather, if you are going to go for the 5.5 inch, make sure it's the touchscreen version. The battery life on this is considerably longer than the 7 inch, which is obvious. I think this is good value for money, but I do think this is definitely on the cheap. And if I had to drop this and it broke, I wouldn't go and buy this again. I would try another manufacturer. My HDMI cable no longer works. I also have to buy an HDMI cable. So basically all I'm left with is this and that. So out of 4 things that arrived in the beautiful packaging, 2 are still working. I would say save the money on the packaging, because the packaging is too nice for this type of product. I would have saved the money on the packaging and provided a higher quality monitor and also a better quality cable and also a more functional arm. Now this one, the 7 inch, well, it's got everything you need. It's got the LUTs, and I do have a video showing the LUTs. It's fairly good. I did pick up some inconsistencies, but what I have a problem with here is really just this border here. It seems to be too big. You know, it's a 7 inch monitor, but do you need a bezel that is that thick, almost 2 centimeters and 2 centimeters? That's 4 centimeters of bezel. So I would think if you could get the bezel a bit smaller, that would help. And remember, I highlighted the issue of that being recessed too deep. That for me is a fail, because I can't do anything about that. I can't start changing every single screw on every single camera stand that I've got. So that is a real problem for me. So I also then have to deal with that now that I own this monitor. In terms of this outdoors, it is outstanding. When I use this outdoors, I can honestly say that it is definitely bright enough, but I do recommend you have the biggest capacity batteries. What I don't like is why it says 4K. This is a 1920 by 1200 monitor. There are these specifications: 7 inch monitor, resolution 1920 by 1200. Why on earth write 4K on the face of the screen when it is not 4K. Yes, it can handle a 4K image, but nobody puts 4K on a screen when it cannot output 4K. That is like saying your car is a V8 when it's not a V8. So for me, that doesn't make any sense. I did have some challenges when I was trying to do the color correction, but overall the screen is good and there's not much I can say in terms of the screen, and I do find this monitor is very bright. So the statement there, ultra bright, is a fair claim by the manufacturer. If this monitor had to fall and break, would I go and buy the exact same one? Well, I don't think so. I think that I would definitely get an ultra bright, and if there isn't one available, then I would buy this one again. Overall, I think it's a pretty good monitor, but again, I just question the quality and some of the design things that they've gone with, because I mean, here you've got the power supply. Now this is resting on the plate, for example, and then guess what? You cannot get your plug there because it is blocked by a plate. For me, the power should have been there or anywhere on the side, but just not so close to an attachment point where you are resting the monitor on a stand. All right, so that's just another thing that bothered me. All right, so thanks for watching this very detailed video, and cheers.